Hi, welcome to the Quipster Film Review Podcast. My name is Vince Leo. I am the author of the film review website, Quipster.net. I invite you to check out over 4,000 of my written reviews. You can read there anytime. Quipster.net is where to go. QWIPSTER.net. While you're there, I do encourage you to check out my other podcast. There's a link on the site to Around the World in 80s Movies, where I cover, of course, films of the 1980s, looking at a historical, production notes, trivia, etc. All of that crammed in there for your entertainment. Just click the link on the website and you'll find it at quipster.net. Today I'm going to be looking at a film that's brand new out in theaters called Hustlers. It's a film that is written and directed by Lorene Scafaria. Jessica Pressler gets a screenwriting credit. Constance Wu is the star, Jennifer Lopez as well. Julia Stiles, Keke Palmer, Lily Reinhart, Cardi B, Lizzo, Wei Ching-ho, and a lot of others are also in the film. It's an R-rated film because of pervasive sexual material, drug content, language, and nudity. The runtime is an hour and 50 minutes. Now, Hustlers is a somewhat different take on the traditional crime film. It's ostensibly exploitative, maybe glossy on the surface, but it does have surprising themes to ponder underneath all of that. And this one's inspired by a real-life story. It was chronicled in an issue of New York Magazine. It's an article by Jessica Pressler of how a group of strippers found a way to continue to make money through the recession of 2008 and beyond. They did this by fleecing, somewhat Robin Hood style, the very Wall Street types that had been fleecing the rest of America. Now, this film starts off in the year 2007, just before that recession. Constance Wu plays Destiny. She's a newbie stripper trying to make it in the clubs of New York's competitive environment in order to earn enough money to support both her and her ailing grandmother. And while she's backstage, she ends up meeting and becomes mentored by a legendary veteran stripper on the scene named Ramona, played by Jennifer Lopez. Ramona completely cleans up in terms of money whenever she appears on stage or off, so something that the new stripper, Destiny, definitely wants to tap into. However, soon after the Great Recession of 2008 hits, opportunities are completely drying up to earn cash in the strip clubs. So both ladies are struggling to make ends meet, taking menial jobs, making menial money. That is until Ramona decides to put her own skills at working the crowds of men to the test to make money. In the downtimes, she gathers up Destiny and several other stripper friends to form a club that lures in the very Wall Street types with corporate accounts to swindle them out of thousands of dollars at a time. More to the story than that. Of course, this is the rise and fall of a criminal ring here. Lorene Scafaria, she writes and directs this drama. It has more of a focus on the friendships that end up forming among these thieves, and it looks deeper beyond just earning quick cash as to why they might stay together to continue their run of theft, more than just money here. Some might call this a Scorsese-esque true crime family picture. It mixes elements of such films as Goodfellas or The Wolf of Wall Street, although without many of the more artistic or maybe even ultra-violent aspects of the veteran auteur Scorsese. The same was once said about The Big Short, which was another film about the origins of the greedy manipulators of Wall Street that caused events that happened within Hustlers, although Scafaria's film shoots mostly straight with similar material. Maybe it's not a coincidence here. Both The Big Short and Hustlers have the same production company involved, Will Ferrell and Adam McKay's Gary Sanchez Productions, although it's called Gloria Sanchez for this more female-oriented take. Now, there are two strong performances here that bolster this drama. Constance Wu, she shows a full range of emotion and a lot of vulnerability in this very finely nuanced role. She's terrific. Jennifer Lopez, she doesn't quite have the same range for her character, but she is still very appealing and one of her best roles, I think, in a number of years, maybe the best since Out of Sight. She's quite impressive in this performance that also requires her to be an amazing pole dancer. It's hard to believe that Jennifer Lopez is 50 years old, given how she ends up besting women even half her age on the stage. She's incredible in this performance here. Some of the supporting cast, maybe not quite as strong as these two leads, but they don't really have to be. The bulk of the situations involve one or two of the main players, so the rest only add a few bit scenes and a few bit lines to complement their story. Now, despite being a film about strippers, nudity is pretty mild here in Hustlers. It keeps the emphasis on the drama a little bit better, but it does make you wonder sometimes how the hottest strippers in the most lucrative strip club in town get to be that way when they never end up taking off their clothes. They don't even take off their tops most of the time. It's also interesting to note here that not all of the women who dance at the club are built as typically depicted in other stripper films. You have many women of various sizes, various shapes, doing their thing, doing it well for the crowds that come to see them. And there are many who appreciate different types, and I feel that this film does definitely represent that. Now, one aspect that does seem to distract here from the story is the one that's set in the more modern day. We have Julia Stiles. She plays Elizabeth, a reporter who's trying to get the full story for this article that she's writing about the experience of the strippers. While these scenes are revelatory in terms of the focus of the relationship that exists between Destiny and Ramona, I'm not saying that they should take this out altogether. It does feature some of the finest acting moments, I think, on the part of Constance Wu in particular. I do think that by interspersing them throughout, it tends to slow down the main story's momentum, and it cuts into the sense of mystery or suspense because we then know where things are eventually leaning. Maybe if Scafaria had related this in a more linear fashion by putting the abbreviated version of these reporter scenes more toward the end, I think it might have yielded better results because we as viewers would end up getting more looped into the plight of the women, and we would be interested in seeing how things might develop without actually knowing what the end result is going to be. This one definitely tips its hand very early as to what the ultimate outcome actually is. Now, themes do develop on how the American way of doing things is rigged, and you're either a taker in this environment or you're taken from in a society that favors the sharks. I mean, no one went to jail for tanking the U.S. economy that saw many people lose their jobs, their homes, or more. They even got to keep that money that they ended up using through very suspect means. This helps to form the gray area that's necessary for us to have somewhat conflicted feelings about what these women are doing. I mean, they are preying on unsuspecting men for thousands of dollars, and they are committing crimes, but also these are men who have been preying themselves on the rest of us for our millions of dollars. Scafaria also paints some of the men, to be fair, as not all bad, at least the ones who have a conscience and actually like the women as more than just a means for self-gratification for a few dollars. Now, while the suspense may be muted by that storyline involving the reporter, Scafaria still is able to give us a good sense of the atmosphere of the strippers and their motivations. She really does a good job showing us the seedier side behind the scenes without actually dipping into some sensationalistic exploitation that you would expect from a lot of stripper films. In fact, the last thing that these women end up wanting to do, it's kind of revelatory here, is think about sex once they're done with their job, much to the chagrin of their occasional partners in life. And while there is quite a bit of glitz and a lot of gloss to the depiction of their lives, they are underneath this flawed and human in a way that ends up proving to be refreshingly interesting to us as viewers, especially in how these strippers have to deal with men who frequent the clubs. They range from complete Wall Street douchebags who think they can run the town to those average Joes who are interested in feeling the attention the women provide, even though they're only providing it as long as the money flows in their direction. So it's an interesting film. I would not necessarily say it's one of the best films of the year, but I do recommend it if you're at all interested in this material, if you're a big fan of the actors and certainly are interested in seeing how other people made it through this economy by doing some not so good things, and how crime often ends up resulting in other crime and justification for that crime. There is certainly a lot of interesting material here, above and beyond just the titillation of watching women dancing and removing their clothes on the stage. So for this, I'm going to give Hustlers 3 stars out of 4. 3 stars on my scale means that I do think that it's worthwhile for those people who want to see this kind of movie. If you've seen the trailer or the advertisements, you probably are either attracted to this or maybe even have written it off. But I think if you're writing this film off because you think it's just going to be an exploitative movie, I think you're giving the film a little bit shorter shrift than it deserves. I do think that it is definitely something to think about beyond just what you see the women do in this film. So 3 stars out of 4 is what I'll give Hustlers. If you've seen Hustlers and you have your own takes, whether they differ with mine or you just want to agree with me, you can find my contact information on my website. You can find links to my Twitter feed, Facebook page, Instagram, all of that. Any way to get in touch with me is there at that website, quipster.net, QWIPSTER.net. Until next time, thanks everyone for listening, and please enjoy your time anytime you get to go to the movies.